Smart strategy, real conversations, bigger margins. This is Chasing the Margin podcast.
So welcome back to the podcast. Today we have Miss Beverly Cardenas, who is a very special person in my life. Very excited to have her on. She's got all kinds of fun stuff going on. So thanks for coming on, Beverly.
Thank you for having me. I appreciate it.
So Beverly, you do a lot of stuff for me personally that I really appreciate. That is something that you and I will definitely have a long-term relationship with. So tell us exactly what you do today.
Okay, I am a real estate agent. I'm a realtor at Compass Real Estate, and you are one of my VIP clients. And I've been in real estate now about over 12 years, different aspects of real estate, and that's what I do full time.
Okay. And real estate, good so far? It's frustrating at the moment or fun at the moment? How's it going right now?
Luckily for me, I love real estate. I don't know what else I would do other than this at this point in life. I don't know what other skills I have because I've done it so long, but I'm so passionate about it and I love it so much. Even during the downtimes, I'm still good.
Awesome. Yeah. Awesome. Well, as we were chatting about before the podcast, you haven't always been in real estate. So let's wind back the clock and talk about maybe some of the first things that you did and how you ended up in real estate.
Long story short, I went to school for audio video production at the Art Institute of Dallas, and I was a radio DJ at 97.9 here in Dallas, and I was a producer, an associate producer for a television network on Dish Network. So TV, radio, anything that was artistic, that's all I cared about when I was young. So I did that for a while until I was laid off from the television company, and I was still doing radio. I was an on-air personality, and I ran the boards for some live broadcast. And that, after doing that for so long, I found that it wasn't very meaningful for me. I just sat in a studio by myself from 10 to midnight or 10 to 2 every single weekend. Then when I was doing television, I loved that. I did script writing, I ran talent in the control room, and we had live television shows that were tracking the stock market. So I had a show called The Closing Bell. Yeah, and I had these two fun guys on the show. It was part comedy, part stocks. And the company that the host worked for was a company called Global Tech Solutions. So they had a software platform that helped you trade based on green lights and red lights. It was a system they had. Okay. So we had a live television show where, kind of like Jim Cramer, where phone callers would call in and ask us, or the host, to look at certain stocks. Yeah. That company ended up going under for whatever reason, and then we transitioned into the Success and Training Network. There it was all about motivational speakers would come in. Deepak Chopra came in. I met Zig Ziglar, had lunch with Zig Ziglar. Cool. It was a great job. I was really young, and that went under. Then at that point, it was a little tough to find work in the radio or TV industry. And I ended up, a friend of a friend ended up calling me saying that at the World Trade Center, there was a need for sales reps. And so I was a sales rep under a sales rep for clothing brands. Okay. So basically, we represented brands like Ed Hardy and streetwear brands like Artful Dodger. So it's back when Ed Hardy was like, the rage, and everybody was wearing the trucker hats and Christian Artiget back in the day. Yeah. So I did that, and we built relationships with store owners in Texas, Mississippi, Louisiana. We'd go to New York to meet with the designers for the new collection. We'd project sales orders and cut certain styles for our territory, because in Texas it's hot. New York, fall starts way before fall starts in Texas. So I had to kind of guide them to say, okay, look, don't design so many sweatshirts in fall 1, or
Yeah.
we need more shorts in fall 2. So I did that. But while doing that, I decided to get my real estate license. I just on a whim. I just decided I'm working for someone else. I get paid pennies, and I just figured it was worth a shot, so I did it.
So what exactly was it then? Because I'm always curious. Everybody's story is always different. Was it just completely random? Was it like something you saw? Like, why
Yeah.
real estate?
Well, specifically, I wanted to do apartment locating. I
Okay.
did not want to sell homes. I loved moving. I lived in so many apartments. I grew up in Dallas. I loved helping my friends move. I was that person that liked to move every year into a new lease. And I knew which places had mirrored walls or which places had garden tubs. Random, but I just liked it. And growing up, I was also really intrigued with neighborhoods, and my mom would teach me the names of all the freeways, and I knew where certain schools were zoned. I mean, this is the elementary school. I could name every freeway, and yeah, so I decided, why not? I'm broke right now. Why not try this apartment locating thing? And I had an apartment locator, actually. She helped
Okay.
me. I thought this was cool. I could have done that. She knew exactly what I was looking for, and she found me the perfect place. I was really happy. I asked her, how it worked, how she got paid, and so I went for it. So, yeah, not random, but
Okay.
yeah.
Yeah, I got you. So we'll get into the real estate, but it's good news to hear that you've already been on the air. We're back on the air with Beverly now, but at least now you're not alone like you were in that one studio.
Yeah.
And should I ask you about the stock market? Do you want to give us update on that, or was that left in the past with that last job?
Actually, to be honest with you, it's a major regret that I have. All I cared about when I was younger was the arts. I was a dancer, I performed, I DJ'd, I worked in radio, TV, anything that was cool is what I cared about. And I never bothered to even understand the stock market. I didn't bother to understand investing. And it's, hindsight looking back, I just feel so silly because I had that access all at my fingertips, and not until now have I really started learning about it and
Yeah.
teaching myself about it. It's just, sometimes you live, you learn, and you can't make up for that time because time not in the market, you can't make up for that. It's time in the market that makes you the money. So
Yeah.
thankfully, I've, got my head in the game in that now. But before, I was just young and dumb.
Well, I think it's really interesting. And I actually saw an Instagram post like a few days ago where they're trying to make it a requirement, I believe in high school now, where you have to take a financial literacy class because it really is kind of what you're saying. It's like some people will grow up around it and they will invest in learning it, or maybe they're interested in it for some odd reason. And those people, when they learn at like age, 12, 13, 14, 15, they have 10, 15, 20, 30 years on people that just never were either they didn't think that they needed to know it, or nobody was there to teach them that. But because of that, you're talking about decades of difference. And like you said, decades of difference makes a
World
huge
of
number.
difference. Yeah. And actually, don't get me on my soapbox, because that is one thing when I think about the high school curriculum, it makes me sick to my stomach that they allow kids to go out into the world and they don't know anything. I was that kid, and I grew up, I'm a little older than I look, but I grew up in a time where we really didn't have internet, and we had absolutely no social media or smartphones. And the fact that I work with so many people right now that they don't know anything about buying a house. They don't know anything about the market. They don't know anything about investing. They don't know anything about an ETF. They think it's a scam. And these are smart people, but they just don't know. You don't know what you don't know. And like I said, it makes me sick to my stomach because that is such a beautiful time for young kids to be empowered to come out into the world and make better decisions. And, you know, it just doesn't make sense to me. Like, why don't they offer that?
Yeah. Well, I mean, that's kind of a lot of the thought process behind the podcast here, Beverly, is like, you know, we've had a financial advisor on, now you're on as a realtor, and we'll continue to bring on these subject matter experts. And whether it's somebody who is a client of mine, slash the firm, who's maybe in their 50s or 60s, and they need like a really complex thing to spark their brain. You know, we'll have people on to talk about all kinds of complex things. But when it comes to real estate, or when it comes to just general investing, you know, you and that financial broker that we had on, you're going to provide all this insight to maybe a 15-year-old kid that has nobody to listen to, nobody to inform them. And at least we're trying to put it out there because, like you said, like sometimes the system is just not set up to help those people. And at least we're trying to do something to where, hey, if you want to listen, we're here. We're trying.
Yeah. Actually, that's podcast. I'm so grateful for them because that's what has taught me so much over the last few years. I joke and say that a lot of podcasters are my friends because I spend so much time with them, watching them.
Yeah.
And I've learned so much over the last few years. So what you're doing is great. And if not for things like this and platforms like this, I personally wouldn't, there's a lot that I wouldn't have known. So,
Yeah. I mean, I completely agree. I listen to podcasts all day, every
Same.
day, and it sparks my brain constantly. So, okay, here's one of the things. Let's kind of jump into the actual real estate side of things and you and what you do. I'm always curious about this because each industry has its pros and cons of being in the industry. Like a CPA, for instance, you have to go to school for a long time. You have to get paid terribly while you're working all kinds of hours. So those are the cons. But then long term, it creates a lot of stability. There's a lot of pros to being in a CPA field. So in real estate, you know, it's the barrier of entry is not quite as high to where a lot of people choose to become realtors. A lot of them are super passionate about it. I mean, even myself, I'm not a real estate, or I'm not doing that for a full-time job, but I love real estate. I love to listen to it, hear about it. So the barrier of entry for real estate is not quite as high. There are lots of people in it. How do you differentiate yourself between anybody else?
I feel like you said it's not very high. And it's one of the few industries, I think, that you study, you take an exam, you get a job or a position at a brokerage, you get to your desk and you sit there and you're like, okay, well, I don't know what to do. There's a whole new realm of learning after you get your exam or after you take your exam. And to differentiate yourself, there's so many aspects of real estate that you can get into. You know, there's land, there's luxury, there's new construction. One thing that I would say that I do to differentiate myself is remaining myself. I feel like I've also, didn't tell you this, but I also worked in luxury retail and high-end nightlife here in Dallas. And I've done a lot of things that were high-end and luxury. And I've learned that the way you treat people, the way you speak, the way you present, the way you package, everything tells a story. I love branding. I love imagery. I mean, it all ties into what I used to do.
Yeah.
And so from the beginning, when I got into real estate, I went into apartment locating. And when at that time there weren't so many realtors and there wasn't social media and there wasn't the allure that it has now. And when I joined this company, my best friend and I joined together and we told the broker, we want to brand ourselves as the Dallas Uptown Girls. We want to sell the city. We want to sell the lifestyle. We want to sell what we do, And so that was the first thing. I felt like I wanted to have a brand, an image that represented truly who I was, and to do it in a fun way while being polished and professional and white glove. And so I feel like you can present that and do that without being pretentious.
Yeah.
And that's something that I've always felt was really important. I want to show and make people feel that I'm human first. And it's got nothing to do with your budget. It's got nothing to do with your area or who you are. And people really appreciate that and resonate with that. And I think that's helped me with standing apart from some agents,
Yeah. Well, no, I completely agree with, I mean, there's so many things that you kind of said within those 5 minutes or so that I agree with, I relate to, and I try to emphasize to, like, whether it's our staff or other people that I know, like one of them being kind of the white glove service or the customer service in general, and like how you treat people. To me, when I meet a client, one of the number one complaints in my industry is CPAs are unresponsive and they don't put in the effort to try to get to know me. Like, I have a client that I went, we supported a golf tournament for the MetroCrest Chamber here in Dallas, and my firm paid for it. We paid for a tee box. We had a team that played, so I was going to play on that team. But then this client was like, "Hey, do you want to play with me?" So I was like, "Hey, have somebody else play on A Fairchild's team. I'll just go play with the client." So I did that. As he's dropping me off, he was like, "Listen, man, I know it's not important to you, but like, I've never had a CPA play golf with me, and like, it means a lot to me." And it's kind of all going back to what you're saying is like, if you treat people the way that you really want them to remember you and you put in that extra effort, it goes such a long way that it really is that differentiating factor. I mean, there are so many things, whether it's communication, whether it's how you treat people, whether it's your integrity as an individual, whether it's the style that you have as like your clothing style. There's so many little things that have nothing to do with the craft. They have nothing to do with accounting. They have nothing to do with real estate. They have nothing to do with any career. But because those people connect with you, they see value in that, and they will pay you because they see the value. And that makes a huge difference for anybody in any industry. And that's one of the other things that I'd love to hear your opinion on, because I tell a lot of my younger staff, especially if they want to be client facing, if they want to be in the sales, if they want to be in the sexy side of the business, that, hey, the way you dress, the way that you take care of yourself matters. And to me, I feel like you're always dressed to the nines, Beverly. Like, you're always there every time we see you, even if it's at a random open house, every time we see you. So tell me, like, what is it? How do you feel about that? Does it matter to dress well? Who cares?
Yeah, no. First, people make their first impression within the first 2 to 3 seconds.
Yeah.
And I thank you, first of all, because believe it or not, I hate shopping. I'm not a fashionista. And I feel like with the allure of real estate and realtors today and social media, sometimes it could be, some people think it's all about that. Ultimately, it doesn't matter as long as you are yourself, you look presentable, you are clean and tidy. It's not about the brands. Some people think it's about wearing name brands and an Hermes belt and a Gucci purse. I don't do any of that, I'm just myself, if sometimes you'll catch me in Adidas sneakers and jeans and a polo, and sometimes I'll be in a dress. It's just being yourself and feeling comfortable, because you attract like-minded people and people like you as well, just be yourself and just show who you are. And I think that's what matters.
Yeah, I like that. Like, authenticity is a huge thing. That's a huge deal in my book. So definitely be authentic. And then, I mean, you touched on it. It's like, be presentable. Like, yeah, you don't have to wear name brand, but like, look clean, look like professional, put in the effort, because that may be somebody that like maybe you didn't sleep well the night before, maybe you don't feel great, but like you don't have to make the outside look as bad as the inside feels.
Right. And on that note, what you see on TV on these real estate shows, that's all for the cameras. Also, be presentable, ladies, because I've also seen some looks that are not very appropriate for real estate. You know, you're working with people, and you have to be respectful with how you dress as well.
Yeah.
You know.
Yeah. So here's one that's more general. So we'll have all kinds of people listen to the podcast, people that are just starting up, people that are thinking about starting up, people that are extremely successful, but all of them at some point have had to go through it. And we both know that when you start a new business and it comes down to you got to do it to make money or you don't, there are times when it's rough and you don't make a lot of money. And that's just is what it is. Every one of the guests that's been on here has said the exact same thing, that they have gone through it at some point. So you've gone through that at points. How has that been for you, and what have you done to just make it? You know, have you had to do random things here and there, or have you just eaten ramen? I guess that's kind of the cliche thing. What has Beverly done to make it through?
You know, I've been really, really blessed. When I first started, I did work part-time on the weekends. I was a waitress. So it never really took me away from my business. And the goal was to never have to do that again. And I was able to leave that very early on. And for the rest of the years, there were months that were difficult, but my goal was there's no other option. I felt like as soon as you start thinking that, well, I can do this or I can go back to that and then come back. To me, I did not want to do that ever, ever, ever. And so I always thought there was no other option. And I did well. And also saving money, not spending frivolously, not traveling all the time until, you know, things were on the right path. So years later, I was on the straight and narrow and did really well. I will say a few years ago, I went through a very dark situation where I lost everything. I got out of an abusive relationship and lost absolutely everything I had. And so I started again with zero. And I played with the idea of doing something else, as much as that killed me. But I wondered, how do you get back into real estate after being out of it for a year? And how do you get back into real estate when you don't have money to put into real estate? You know, so it was a really difficult time because all I knew was real estate after so many years. And I had faith in God. I felt like if I had a plan and I believed and I kept a positive mindset, as frou-frou as it sounds, your mindset is everything. There were times, even when I met you, there were even times that I thought, okay, what am I going to do in the next 2 months? And for a split second, I worried and I stressed and I felt that feeling in the pit of my stomach. But quickly I said, okay, no more, because what you think you create. And I said, I am going to attract a client. I am going to put my all into everything. I will be up early every morning. I will meditate and say my affirmations. I will get on the phones. I'll do everything I can. And I will not waste any more time thinking of what if this happens? What if it doesn't work out? So I just stopped and it worked out.
Yeah.
And I've started seeing and learning things always work out, but you really, really have to believe it. And you can't think about the what if, what if it doesn't? I mean, again, you do have to be sensible, you do have to think, well, if it doesn't, then you do have to have some sort of plan or some sort of mindset. But I just don't waste time of thinking about the negative, and I only put in the effort into moving forward and and believing that it will work out, and it always has. Thank God.
Yeah, I completely relate to that. So, and I like that you're being vulnerable here on the podcast, because that's what I like to see from the guest is like, I want the listeners to understand that like these are real people that have gone through really difficult things and they're still successful. So even if you're going through a hard time, that you can get past it. You like you kind of demonstrated, your brain wants to doubt you at times, and it's difficult to overcome that. But if you just keep putting taking the next step, doing the next step, and just say, okay, I can do this. I can do this. Even if you're the only one in your corner that's giving you that affirmation, like you said, you can get to it. One of the other things that I want to jump back to, because I talk about this a lot, and I would love to hear you talk about it, is I tell my friends all the time, they're trying to look for a place, or they're trying to rent a place, and I'm like, well, you could use the best realtor in Dallas if you would just do it. And they're like, oh, but my friend. And I'm like, but your friend is not the best. And in my opinion, one of the biggest differentiators between you and them is you still live here in Dallas. Like, you are in downtown Dallas. You're not out in the suburbs claiming to be a Dallasite.
Right.
Do you think it's important for the realtors to be, at least, I guess, in their environment on a regular basis to really know what the city's like?
Right. It's possible not to live in the area and still be great. But I do think that it sets me apart, or it sets any realtor apart from those that don't. And I feel like that's helped with the connections that I've made with my clients. I live in Victory Park. My office is right outside of Lakewood. So that is my market area where I'm the majority of my business is there. I sell and lease and list in that area. I help people in the suburbs too. But being in that area and partaking in the businesses in the area, and that grocery store is my grocery store, and that lot over there is going to be this business. And I know the guy at the grass-fed beef place, and and I know what gas stations to not go to after certain times of the night. So those little things, those are the things that a buyer or renter, you can't find that info on Zillow. You can't Google that. You can't chat GPT that. So it's those little micro things and that knowledge that set certain realtors apart from others. And another reason why I wanted to live in the area, because this is the area that I want to sell and that I'm passionate about. And a lot of people are coming to this area, and why not work with someone who is a market expert? A market expert is what you should have working for you.
Yeah, I mean, to me, that's one of the biggest things that's difficult for people if they don't live in the area, is like you kind of demonstrated. Oh, that one gas station, after it's 9:00 at night, you don't go to that gas station. That is a rough area. And I think that's important for people to hear, is like real estate or anything in general. Like, you got to know the minute details of what it is that you're selling, because those little bitty details really, really matter. And if you and I go to visit a house and you're like, hey, Troy, that street that's 3 streets from here, you can't go past that street. But the second street further from here, you can. That tells me, oh, Beverly spent the time to really understand like what it is that's going on in the area, what type of house this really is. So then I feel better about it. And you are helping people buy something that to some people is probably the most precious thing that they own,
Exactly.
which is a home. And when it's that sensitive to somebody, you have to be sensitive to the little details, because the little details matter.
Exactly.
So.
Yeah, and even when people are looking to list their places in a particular area, you can work with anyone. But if a market expert specializes in an area, they also have a database of people that might be a good fit for your place too.
That's something that I'm always curious about, Beverly. So as you've helped me rent out my place, okay, one of the things that's always impressive to me, and I was bragging about you the other day to one of my clients, because the clients come in and they're like, I'm thinking about getting into real estate for tax purposes. So should I do it? Should I not? So they ask me all kinds of fun questions. And then for me, I'm like, oh, well, I invest in real estate. And then they immediately kind of sit up in their chair. They're like, you do invest in real estate? Yes, I do. I actually have a really good realtor. But one of the things that we were kind of chatting about in a client meeting the other day was that the last time that you rented our rental, we actually had to kind of postpone the renters because they were going to be ready to rent before we were ready, and you did that before the current renters were out. So that all goes back to what you mentioned, which is a database. So to me, that's one of the most helpful things that I could ever look for in a realtor is somebody who has a good database for me.
Right.
What is it that kind of helps you build up that database? How do you find those people?
It goes back to the way I started with apartment locating. It was all by accident. Like I said, I wasn't looking to sell homes. I just wanted to rent apartments and started doing that and building a database of more renters, and it compounds, right? Like the first year you help 12 people, then maybe 50% of those send you a referral, and maybe 25% of those want to move again. Now your next year, that next year's database is even bigger. Do that for 3, 4, 5, 6, 7 years, you start building a very big database and reputation in the industry, especially when you're focusing on a core area.
Yeah.
So that's what started it. And then when those people were looking to move into a townhome for rent or they were ready to purchase, that's what led me to start selling homes, because I was building relationships where with people that were moving to Dallas that were college grads. A lot of people were young college grads and just wanted to live in Uptown and be close to the bars. They would contact us and we had it. But I would slowly start following their life, trajectory. So they got a little older, they got a raise at their job. They wanted to move up into a nicer apartment. Then they got a girlfriend or they got engaged. They wanted to rent a townhome like yours. Then they said, you know what, we want to start a family and we're tired of renting. Then they buy. So I've been through all these milestones with so many people, and it just led to what I have today. So it was a nice transition that was all by accident.
Yeah. What is that like for the clients? Because you kind of go through a uniqueness with what you do with the client that was a frat bro that got out of college, and then all of a sudden he got a girlfriend, and then he got married, and then he had a kid. Talk to us about like maybe how that plays into your decision to stay as a realtor with seeing the really cool milestones of your clients.
That's what makes me even more happier to do what I do, because it's not about numbers. It's not about sales. I've told people sometimes this might not be the right move for you. I'd love to sell you this, or I'd love to find you another rental, but what you have here is great. And because they're now like family almost, right? You really have a relationship with them. Sometimes you play the role of an advisor or a friend, or sometimes a mom, sometimes a therapist, sometimes a financial planner. So you play all these roles, and then it's even more special because you're seeing them from the beginning to further into their life. So doing real estate just means so much more to me because I've done it for so long and I've built so many great relationships. And like I said, I don't know what else I would do.
Yeah. I think people feel that, and it goes back to kind of that authentic thing that we talked about earlier with like, they can feel that genuineness of, well, Beverly doesn't know if this is the right fit for me, and she really does care about me. Maybe I should kind of reconsider what I'm trying to do. And then that person is they're a client for life at that point because they know you'll take care of them.
Yeah, they know you're not just transactional. You're really looking out for them. And that's the bad reputation that a lot of realtors have. Unfortunately, a lot of people, they only care about getting from point A to point B and being done and moving on to the next and stacking the sales and stacking the numbers and getting the awards. Like, our business is relationship based, at least my business. When I say ours, I mean like my team. But yeah, so it's just really important to me to make sure that it's being genuine, authentic, honest, and having that relationship with people.
Yeah, I think that's true for really any industry, but I mean, definitely real estate. But for any industry, I think nowadays people want to feel connected. In a world we stare at a screen, that we lose so much of that personal connection. To be in a home and envision your future, and to have that advisor that's there, that's encouraging you, that's listening to you, that's really wanting what's best for you. You just feel all that warmth all at one time from that realtor. And if it's somebody that's transactional, unfortunately, you'll probably feel the opposite.
Yeah.
Where you can feel the coldness of like, why is this person even here with me in this moment?
Yeah.
So one of the things in real estate is the marketing side of things. And I'd love to hear kind of maybe how you've marketed yourself, whether it's virtually, whether it's in person. What are some of the unique things, or maybe a funny story that you have about an experience you've had in the past with how you've gone out there and gotten it done?
There's so many different things you can do with marketing. And, you know, to be honest with you, I probably should be doing more on social media. Sometimes it could be overwhelming. I do my thing from time to time. Sometimes I'll be very dialed into social media, and then I'll disappear for a while. But one thing that really helped me, that I just randomly had this thought one day, it was when I was specifically doing rentals. I was thinking I was doing a lot of high-rise rentals, and there was really no authority in Dallas that had created a niche and a brand specifically for that. Mm-hmm. And I always liked having different domains that use specific keywords to help drive leads.
Okay.
So that's what I did. I went to GoDaddy and I typed in DallasHighRiseRentals.com. How much better can you get? You know, you've got, if someone's searching anywhere in the country to come to Dallas, they want a high-rise rental in Dallas, those words are there. So I bought the domain, built a website, and created that niche with Dallas High-Rise Rentals. And so it organically ranks, and without having to spend a dime, I'm getting traffic and leads going towards the website. And I'm generating high net worth individuals that are wanting to live in high rises, that eventually, most people that come to Dallas, they want to rent first and then eventually buy. And so I'm still doing rentals and sales, but I eventually convert those people into buyers. I'm sorry.
Yeah.
So that was one thing that I thought was a really good idea, and it's been really instrumental into building a database and meeting new clients. Another thing that I think is a little undervalued are Facebook private groups.
Okay.
It sounds boring, and, you know, I never thought about it, but there's so many groups that are specifically tailored to specific things. And for example, part of the marketing that I do will be getting on one of the Facebook groups. For example, UT Southwestern has a group with people that are moving here to Dallas that either want to buy or rent. So that's part of the marketing, that I'll share listings there, jump into conversations with people, and just be an authority in that group. Also, Nextdoor, very undervalued. Most people are ranting and raving on there about their neighbors and about different things going on in the neighborhood, but it's not saturated with listings and things like that. You've got to provide value, right? You're not just jumping in there and posting listings. But when you do post something about a listing coming up or coming soon, you've got the eyes of all the neighbors. Where else are you going to have something that's targeted to your property's neighborhood, where people are actually communicating? They're real people. It's not flooded with advertising. So that's been really helpful too. And then also email marketing.
Okay.
It's very basic stuff. You would have thought I would have said something like YouTube or Instagram or Facebook, but I feel like everybody does that, and it's great, and I need to do more of that. But there's also things that are a little bit undervalued, and you can better target the specific person that you're looking for instead of marketing to the masses, right?
Yeah.
And I'm talking about, I guess, marketing listings and things of that nature, right?
I think that you've touched on like a couple things. One thing that I think is really interesting there is with the Dallas high-rise rentals. It's like you thought through, what is it that I would like to continue to target, and what type of person or real estate would I like to sell, rent, it's interchangeable there. And you did something that was very, very targeted, that was very valuable. But the interesting thing is you went on the other end of the spectrum with the other two approaches that you said, where it's like, what are some of the things with the Facebook group and the Nextdoor app that are unconventional, that are maybe undervalued? So it's kind of interesting that you did the two things that are very different, or not very different, very both sides of the spectrum, by trying to get very specific, that's like very obvious, and maybe something that's not so obvious. Yeah. So that's really interesting. And I actually like that you said, the typical quote unquote things that people do now are not what you do. And it's almost like you're going back to the basics.
Exactly.
With the email campaigns, and with the finding a domain that's very specific for people to just find on Google, and the Facebook groups and the Nextdoor apps. Because I keep reading over and over again through these sales books about like, yeah, all these things are flashy and this is the next new sales thing that people are doing. But they all keep saying the same thing. They're like, the basics are the basics for a reason. And I think that that's kind of the bottom line to a lot of what you're saying, is people, I think, sometimes spend too much time trying to be cute with their sales marketing stuff, that if you would just stick to the basics, for most of your time, then it pays off.
Yeah, exactly. That's exactly. The basics work. Picking up the phone works. Emailing people about what they're interested in works, Not to say that the others don't, but a lot of times people are chasing the next shiny object, and then on to the next and the next, and everyone's running in the same direction. And so I figured, let me step back and just keep it simple. I still want to do more on social media, because it still is a platform that's going to get you eyes across the world, and it's the easiest way to get tons of eyes on you the fastest, right? So
Right.
it is great. But like you said, the basics are the basics, and they're never going to go out of style. And you won't get hacked. You can lose your Instagram account, you can get banned on YouTube, but my email database is mine, and so I think it's safe also.
Yeah. Well, I think one thing that also kind of just came to mind is, a lot of people are going out there and creating content, and they're sending it out expecting people to come to their content. But what you're doing with the things that you listed is you're going to where people are. You're putting the effort to go find them. And I think that that's really where sales, in my opinion, really happen, is you go meet the people where they're at, and then you just kind of conversate with them, like you said, with maybe it's the Facebook group, for instance, where it's like, hey, comment on a couple of their posts, and then all of a sudden you're in a conversation, and then all of a sudden, hey, you want to go get coffee, or you want to go grab lunch, and then all of a sudden you've built this relationship with somebody because you went to where they're at, instead of posting this fancy Instagram post that you spent 8 hours editing to send out there that the person that you're trying to target may never even see.
Right, exactly. And you want to give a little. What is Gary Vaynerchuk's book? One of his first books, is it Jab, Jab,
Oh, yes.
Right Hook?
It's something like that.
Something like that, meaning you've got to give and give a little more and give a little more. And when I say give, like, for example, in Next Door app, I live in the area and I'm talking with people in my neighborhood, and they might be looking for a housekeeper. Hey, I've got a great housekeeper. And hey, there's this great coffee shop over here. And I've got free boxes if anybody wants it. Then you become that local authority in the group. And then when you have a listing or come to my open house. Hey, they know who you are, and you are the authority there, and they trust you a little more because you're not asking. You've been giving also.
Yeah. So you mentioned open houses, and you do open houses all the time. Obviously, that's what you do. Let's get into maybe some fun things instead of getting into the business side of it. So in an open house, it's open to anybody. All kinds of people can walk through the door. What's something that's been like a funny eye-rolling moment for you where you've had something happen to you in an open house where you're like, I cannot believe that just happened? Is there anything that comes to mind?
I had a scary moment once, actually. I was getting ready to close up, and a lady came in that I believe was homeless. And I was all packed up. All the lights were off. And I just felt like, well, I didn't know what to do. It was 3 stories, number one. I was upstairs. She walked up the stairs, and she didn't look like she was in her right state of mind.
Oh, yeah.
It wasn't that she was homeless. It's just, and I was just shaking, and I didn't have my phone, and I didn't want to be rude or rush her out or anything. And she was just saying how beautiful it was and that she was thinking about buying. And so I just let her look, and I just stepped back, and I went downstairs, and I just made sure I had someone on the phone, because you never know. It's scary. You have a sign sitting outside saying, hey, everybody, come in. I'm here alone. Come get me. And she ended up being sweet, but it was just, you just never know, and it's scary.
Yeah.
Especially in a 4-story townhome.
Yeah.
Where do you go
if
something were to happen?
Yeah. I'm sure like realtors in general have all kinds of, like, whether it's funny or scary or eye-rolling moments with all these open houses that you guys do weekend after weekend.
Yeah, even with showings, I was showing a client a place in the Bishop Arts District. It was the middle of the day, and the door, we were putting in the key, and it wouldn't open. And the guy I was showing, he went through another door, and he said, oh, this one's open. So we thought, that's strange. So we went in through the side door. We're looking around, and it was a 2-story house. And all of a sudden, we thought we heard something, and 2 people, squatters, came out, and they looked like they were gone, like they had been on something. And we just stepped out, and it was very awkward because none of us said anything to one another. They stared at us, we stared at them, we were in shock, they were in shock. And it was like him and his girlfriend, they walked out holding hands with all their bags, and they just went down the street, and we were just so freaked out because you never know.
Yeah.
So, yeah.
Oh my gosh. So the last thing that I would love to hear kind of some of your thoughts on is personal, as far as like, I would like your expertise while you're on the podcast for my personal benefit. But that's the investing side of things. So I know you have several clients that like to invest in real estate. It's a very common thing. So what is it maybe that some of your investors look for specifically here in Dallas? Like maybe it's types of properties, maybe it's specific to the property. They have like one thing. Talk to us about that, and maybe give us some things to look out for as we're trying to invest.
Ultimately, as you know, it's all about the numbers, and everybody wants the cash flow. So I was actually working with an investor right now from DC just 2 weekends ago, and he wants to be specifically in Dallas. One thing that's really important is the development around where you're buying. Are you near airports, hospitals, schools, and being in an area that has growth? And because there's some areas, for example, that are up and coming, which is great because you get to get in on the ground floor. But there's some neighborhoods that have been up and coming for 10 years. And as an investor, we need to understand, well, what is your final game plan? What is your exit strategy? Is this something you're trying to profit on in 3 years, in 5? Is this a long-term game plan? So you want to identify that first. What is your game plan and your goal ultimately? Also, depending on how you're purchasing, are you purchasing cash or are you financing? Because if you're carrying a note, what does that interest rate look like? When are you going to eventually cash flow? Will it be in years? What do you need? You have to think of all those basics first. And then, like I said, think of the neighborhoods. East Dallas is a great neighborhood, but right now, interest rates are high. A few years ago, you could buy a 2-bedroom brand new condo in that area for $450, $475. Now they're $600,000. And so many people bought over the last few years, like during COVID, tons of people bought. So now there are a lot of rentals in that area. Mm-hmm. And so a new investor right now might not want to buy something in that area because there's so much competition. So the gentleman I was working for, he wanted a single family home. He wanted to make sure that it wasn't older than the year 2000 because he didn't want to have to worry about any major repairs or anything.
I gotcha.
He was okay with doing some work, the basics, but homes that were built in the 1940s or 50s, there were some great flips, but he just didn't feel comfortable with that. So knowing what your threshold is and what you can potentially work with, like what kind of, do you want a remodel? Do you want something that's turnkey? So those are the discussions that you have to have at the beginning before even going out to look.
Yeah. Is there anything with any of your investors that's like, any house, if it has this one thing, every one of your investors, or I guess really even buyers, are like, nope, that house has that one thing, is a huge red flag, and they are just immediately like, nope, I don't want this house.
Foundation problems.
Yeah. I thought you might say that.
We're out of there.
That's what I'm thinking in the back of my head as I'm asking this question is, Beverly, if you told me this house has foundation problems,
run.
We are done.
Run. That is the first question I ask. Even today I had showings and I'm lining up all of the showings. And a lot of times that's not disclosed. So I'll text message every agent before I schedule a showing. Has the foundation been worked on? Is there a warranty? How old is the HVAC? Because the HVAC age isn't even on a seller's disclosure. You can get a seller's disclosure and there's no question as to what age is the HVAC, what age is the hot water heater. There's a section for the roof, but those are those big ticket items that most buyers don't want to deal with and are the most expensive, right? Some investors, they don't mind because they're working that into their numbers. What's the cost of the house? Okay, well, it has a horrible roof. I need to buy a new HVAC. We'll calculate all that. And if it makes sense, we'll buy it. But a retail regular buyer is going to run or try to negotiate it or significantly lower their offer price.
Yeah, I guess that makes sense because me being a kind of newer investor, a lot of those things, like I understand the math, but I would be like, no, I do not want to deal with that headache at this point in my life.
Right.
But somebody who's probably been in real estate investing for 30 years is like, what's another HVAC unit to replace at this point?
Yeah, that's easy for them. Yeah. It's all about your tolerance threshold. Yeah. What are you willing to deal with? So the gentleman that I was working with, he specifically wanted stuff that were homes that were more updated and, maybe needed some paint. He didn't want to have to knock down walls, just paint, carpet, the simple stuff. So, and there's not a lot out there. There wasn't a ton for him, but we're figuring it out.
Yeah, for sure. So then on the opposite side of that, what is it, whether you own your home or whether you're an investor, and maybe these are two different answers, that you can do to improve the home that you feel like is like the most bang for your buck? Is there anything particularly that you can invest into your house that really makes a difference?
Well, if you're planning on selling your home and you're going to put it on the market, those big ticket items, I would say, are the first things. Because like I said, I was showing a client today, and before I even scheduled the appointment, I wanted to know what age is the water heater, what's going on with the roof. I wanted to know everything about the big ticket items because most buyers want to move in and not have to worry about that. So if you can make sure all of that is in working order or has a warranty, I would say more than anything, the big ticket items, because you can have nice landscaping, you can add beautiful paint or wallpaper, you can, all the accessories, that's easy. Sometimes people think, oh, I'm going to do all of these updates, and the buyer comes in and rips them all out.
Yeah.
So why not invest in those major systems rather than the accessories that make the home look good? But if you're not looking to put your house on the market and you just want to add value to it eventually and do some updates around the home, I'd say your kitchen and your primary bathroom, those are the superstars of the home. You want to don't overdo it, right? You don't have to spend a ton of money, but nice appliances, updated sink, nice countertops, wood floors is always a plus. Your primary bathroom, make sure it's updated, whether it be nice fixtures and I'm sorry, I keep stuttering and I don't like the way I sound. Sorry, Troy.
Don't worry, Alex makes us sound good.
I don't know.
We're just here to look pretty. Alex,
I might
makes
not
us
even
sound
watch
good.
this interview.
You will.
Okay, I'm starting over, Alex. Starting now. Stop. Also, your primary bathroom, that's also the superstar of the home. You want updated cabinets, toilets. Even an updated toilet can make a big difference. And it's little things. They're not that costly. So if you're living in a home, and even if you're not thinking about selling for another 5 years, take advantage of the time and enjoy those updates yourself, right? And when you are ready to sell, you've got an updated bedroom or bathroom and you've got an updated kitchen, then make sure your systems are in order. And then it makes it easier for everybody. It makes it easier to make a better first impression on a buyer and less hassle for you to have to negotiate credits or give credits for repairs and things of that nature.
Yeah, no, I think that's really good. And that's kind of what I was looking for, is like, what is it that's really, really important? And that makes complete sense because, being in, like you said, the primary bedroom, bathroom, or being in your kitchen, like that's where people are really spending most of their time.
Exactly.
And as an investor, that's always what I think about. It's like, if I'm going to spend $10,000 investing into my house, like I don't want to spend $10,000 and not get any benefit down the road. I want to at least, I want to enjoy it, but I want to at least be able to get that money back out. So going back to the thing that you said, if you're getting your house ready to sell, because I'm a numbers guy. I'm a numbers guy. So let's say it's like $20,000 for a new roof, just as an example. Do you feel like because you put that new roof on there and you went through the hassle before you sold it, that the buyer is willing to pay more than the $20,000 that you spent? Like, do you think it adds more value or just the same value that you spent by replacing the roof yourself?
That's a good question. It's not always dollar to dollar.
Yeah.
Right. And it's also relative. Like what is a new roof is very important, and there is value in that, especially if it's a new roof with a warranty. There is more value that you would get out of that. But if you put in flooring for $10,000, don't expect that flooring to equate $10,000 of value
Yeah.
on it. And sometimes people make that mistake and they say, well, I added the stand-up shower and that cost me 15 grand. Let's add 15 grand. It doesn't equate the exact amount.
Do you
But
feel like the big ticket items such as the roof?
and foundation, yeah.
Okay.
Absolutely.
Okay.
And that's what I'm saying. That is the most important thing. I would emphasize on those big ticket systems before anything.
Yeah. Yeah. I mean, that's if I were looking at a home, if we were with you and the roof was in horrible condition and the buyer knew it, and they disclosed it to us and, told us everything. But we went in and saw it and I'm like, I don't want to deal with the headache. Even if they had taken off enough money for me to go buy or redo the roof myself, I think a lot of people are probably in the same boat as me. They don't want to deal with the headache.
Right.
They just won't even consider the house purely
Yeah.
because of that.
Sometimes they won't even go look at it. And I actually had a client who was buying a house. It was a pre-owned home, and it had plumbing issues. And during the inspection, we had a plumber come in and give us a quote and show us everything that was wrong with the home. And it was about $20,000. Well, we got a credit for it. So
Yeah.
might as well take care of it on the front end so you don't have to give your money away.
We'll end with kind of like some futuristic thinking and some advice that you would love to give people. Before we get to the advice thing, Gen Z buyers, I hear this, and maybe you've experienced different, so you can correct me on this. But I hear all the time like, oh, Gen Z doesn't have the American dream that everybody's always had, and like they're not worried about buying a home, and they see home acquisitions completely different. Do you think that Gen Z coming up, or Gen Alpha, I think at this point,
I don't know.
the
After
really
seeing-
young people, do you think that the way that they view home purchasing will impact the industry in the future?
I think there's going to be a shift, definitely, compared to generations before, say 30, 40 years. I think that's inevitable. But I also think that they're not all of them will lose sight of the importance of home ownership. Eventually, they're going to want security, and that's going to be important at some point in their life, depending on where they are.
Yeah.
But I've noticed that Gen Zers, they are more skeptical and financially conscious. And so I think that makes my job even more important to show them the value of home ownership versus showing them the aesthetics, right? But I've worked with a lot of Gen Zers. A lot of my clients are really young. And for example, I had a girl who lives in a high-rise, single girl, makes great money. And she's thinking about buying. So we went to go look at a couple of places, and she had like $450,000 budget, which is a good budget.
Yeah.
And when she saw what she got for her money, she lives in Uptown, like off Clyde Warren Park, really nice area, Perry Steakhouse downstairs.
Yeah.
And so when I showed her these places, she said, absolutely not. I'm renewing my lease, because Gen Zers are living in beautiful apartment communities with great amenities where they don't have to think about anything. Pool, concierge, the nice finish outs, views. And so when you're used to that, and then you go around the corner and you see what 400 gets you, they say, yeah, no, I'm good. But eventually, depending on your life, maybe you get married, maybe you have kids, and you have to, go into another direction. But also, contrary to what some real estate agents think, and this might not be popular with a lot of people, but I also don't think everybody has to buy a home right away. I don't think it's for everybody. And there's a lot of house shaming that goes on. I really think that it depends on where you are in life and what your goals are. And sometimes you can, for example, I've owned a home before and now I'm a renter. and I love being a renter, and I don't want to buy a home right now, personally. But eventually I want to buy property. I still don't want to live in it. I want my mom to live in it, and I'd be her landlord, or my sister live in it. I do want to own real estate because obviously I see the value in it. But right now I live in a building and I live by myself and with my dog, but I see people every day. I've got great neighbors. My neighbors turn into my clients. I've got concierge. I feel safe. I go out and walk 2 miles north on the trail and I feel safe, or the other direction and I feel safe. And it works for me.
Yeah.
But I've told people it's not for everybody. And there's also other ways for you to invest your money. You know, the stock market, you can make about 8% in a year with the S&P 500.
Yep.
So, and even with crypto, there's people that make way more with crypto in 6 months. I'm not recommending it to anybody.
That's not your professional advice.
Right. No professional advice to buy, sell, or hold. But as long as you're doing something with your money and not blowing it on dumb stuff,
Yeah.
I just think put your money somewhere. Don't spend it frivolously. And if you can buy a home that stays within the range of your rent, that makes you happy, that you're ready for the work that you might have to do, the money you have to have ready invested for it, your taxes can go up, and maybe you thought your payment was going to be X amount, and then in 2 years, there's this huge increase, and you have to sell it in 2 years, and you're at a loss. So not to scare anybody, but you just have to make sure it's the right time. I'm a realist, and I've seen people in situations that just bought a house to buy one, and they topped out their budget and then found themselves in a difficult situation.
Yeah. And I like that you're going back to the same thing with meeting people where they're at with maybe some of these Gen Z buyers, where it's like you are adapting to the clientele and how they're adapting. And if the clientele needs to see the value from a financial point of view more so than an emotional point of view, then you are adapting to the people.
Right.
And that's really what everybody's got to do in their industry. Is in my industry, in your industry, in anybody's industry, you've got to adapt to what's required is ultimately the bottom line, regardless of what you're doing.
Yeah.
Let's end with a couple fun things. If you could buy any house or rent, sure, whatever you want to do, what is it that you would want in your dream house? Because you're a realtor, you see all these fun things. What are some of the cool things you'd like to have, or the special things that make a house unique?
Oh, I know this answer exactly. I just did a post on it actually not too long ago. I would like to live somewhere off of the Katy Trail near Buena Vista, Travis Street. Okay. Duplex or townhome, no condo, not a single family. I want to be right off the trail, something built in the 80s, late 80s, early 90s. I like, a little old school flair, no more than 2 stories, about 2,000 to 2,500 square feet max, 2 bedrooms with an office, small yard, because I don't want a lot of upkeep, 2-car garage for workout space and my car. And somewhat updated. I don't mind doing some updates myself. I think that would be fun. So it doesn't have to be completely updated. I wouldn't mind something that has a little bit of character. I think old homes are the way to go. I used to love the modern new construction. Now I'm loving the older homes a little more.
Yeah, I relate to both of those things. Like, I love the trail. I love being able to just walk onto it. Maybe we'll be neighbors one day, because I'd love to do the same thing. And then the same thing with, like, I really thought I loved these modern homes, but then you walk into these houses that have character, that are like a little older, and maybe you didn't think you liked that, but you walk into it and it's like, oh, I really like these like unique things that this house has.
It just does something for the soul. Just make sure the HVAC system is taken care of, the foundation is good, then you're good. You can go older home.
Check off the big ticket items first. Okay, and then last thing here is what is it that you would give for somebody that either wants to be in real estate or that wants to start their own business? What's the best advice you could give them, maybe for some of the younger people listening?
Oh, that's a great question. And I can give so much advice because I've learned so much over the last few years, and I'm still taking my own advice as well. So,
aren't we all?
Yeah, exactly. But number one, I would say discipline, learn discipline. I used to look at people and wish I was as disciplined as them. I thought it was like a gene, a genetic kind of thing. Like, I'm just not a disciplined person. I'm not a morning person, you know? But what I've learned is that discipline, you can practice it and get better at it. And it's putting in the reps. And the more you do so, the more you're conscious of it, the better you get at it. But ultimately, it all comes down to discipline. Everything, no matter what industry, no matter what dream you have, it comes down to discipline, as cliche as it sounds. Secondly, I used to not believe in myself. I used to think certain things weren't attainable for me. It wasn't until many years later that I realized you really can have and do anything. Again, cliche, but you can do and have anything you want. But you can't stop trying. As soon as you give up, you failed. The consistency of people that have succeeded in anything they've done is that they didn't stop. They didn't quit. And also staying humble, keeping it real and staying humble, because life gives to givers and it takes from takers. And that is consistent across the board in human nature. I mean, I've got so many things. Also, stop spending your money on dumb stuff. Being able to, like, for example, with real estate, you can make really good money, but then there's sometimes you can make absolutely nothing. And you never know. When you were 2 days away from closing, I've had deals fall apart. And if you don't have money set aside for those rainy days or for opportunities that might come to fall on your lap. Being in real estate, you see deals before they even hit the market. Imagine if you just have that money set aside to be able to jump on an opportunity that could potentially be life-changing. I would say definitely be smart with your money. Don't count your commission before it comes in. Stay humble, give back. Also find a mentor. These are all things that advice I'm giving that I did not take. Okay. So these are all things I wish I would have known a long time ago. Get some sort of a mentor or coaching in any industry that might be, because having someone learn from someone else's mistakes or someone tell you the mistakes they've made, or just to be a fly on the wall. Sometimes learning, for me at least, if I can just sit in a room and watch you do your thing, listen to your conversations, how the conversations bounce back and forth, that to me is gold. I would pay for that. I did coaching for a few years, and when I look back, when I was selling real estate, and I thought I knew what I was doing, I knew how to sell, but I didn't know how to run my business like a business. All of that started with coaching and surrounding myself with other agents that were successful, and just being around influential people that cared about their business, had the same mindset. You have to surround yourself with like-minded people. And yeah, I mean, I can go on and on. There's a lot, but those would be the main things that I would say.
I mean, I think those are all so good, so practical. Especially to me, like the consistency and the discipline, it's difficult. And that's the thing, is discipline is difficult, which is why so many people struggle with it. But if you just keep working at it, eventually you'll become disciplined, and trying to do the right thing and trying to listen and be humble and look for those mentors. I mean, it's all good advice, Beverly. You know, each one of those things are something that people can take away. And if they'll just implement one of them, it'll make a huge difference.
Exactly.
So, well, thank you for coming on, Beverly. It's been great. Love to spend time with you, and looking forward to doing all kinds of things fun in the future.
I appreciate it. Thank you.